sounds like Natter Splat, bitch.
Natter Splat.
Natter Splat.
Natter Splat.
Natter Splat. Natter Splat. Natter Splat.
Natter Splat.
So today we are going to talk about two subjects that I am a big fan of. One, I guess many people would be a fan of, but not everybody. So we'll talk about alcohol today and giants. But I want to talk about alcohol first.
Okay.
So let's start like easy. Do you enjoy a beverage? How often do you drink, would you say? That's a loaded question to you, I feel. You're going to get judgment for it more than I will. Oh, but I don't know. I think we're going to be two cultures. I don't know, but we're in Europe. Like, drinking is like a part of many of the cultures out here. So.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more accepted than it is in the Americas. You know, I think
it's just more casual.
They'll be quicker to call you an alcoholic. Like an American may look at you if you're drinking a beer at 3:00 in the afternoon with some sort of idea that you're an alcoholic. While I don't think that's the first thought for a British person. You know, maybe if you're wasted, but I think it's more acceptable in general.
Yeah.
Well, my drinking goes through in cycles, I think. So sometimes I'll drink a lot for a little while. And then I'm like, that's getting a bit much. It's getting a bit habitual. So I'll knock that back a little while, you know?
Oh, sure.
So before Christmas, I enjoyed the red wine.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. And then I was like, I think I've had too much red wine for a while, so.
But in Prague, like, were you getting like Czech red wine and like...
I found a bottle that was really cheap that I quite liked. And I bought one, I said, that's cheap, let's try it. And I liked it. So I bought 10 bottles.
Sometimes it works out like that. Like sometimes the cheap wine out here is nice.
it was a nice find. But I'm, in Prague, you're gonna drink beer.
Yeah.
It's
This is the only place that I drink beer, actually. Like, German beer is okay, Dutch beer, Belgian beer,
Mexican beer, though.
Okay, Mexican beer and Czech
Mexican.
beer. No, but even Mexican beer is still kind of like categorized the same for me, but like it's the preferable of them all. But the one beer I can actually consume and get a buzz and like not feel full is Czech beer. Like this is my number one beer in the whole world is here.
I'm pretty sure the Czech Republic is the nation that drinks the most beer, or at least has won that award before, if it's not this year. In close competition with the
Germany right next
Germans and Belgium, probably that. I don't think anywhere takes the title for most alcohol. I think
Consumption
Russia,
per person.
I think that's Russia. I think might win that because that's vodka. I think.
I wonder what the facts of that would be. Like, what nation consumes it? I'm gonna look that up. France, I guess, consumes the most alcohol other than the top country by GDP, and also has an above average life expectancy for people that drink alcohol.
What's that? Per capita?
So my assumption on this is going to be based on what they are drinking, because the French are so known for their wine. And then also, like, red wine is known to be not so bad. Like, red wine has beneficial aspects to it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's why France drinks the most and has a longer than an above average life expectancy as well. Because I would have to, my assumption on that is based on red wine specifically.
I thought that was like 1 glass a week for the antioxidants.
No, but then how much would you say like the average British person would drink? Probably like a glass of beer or a beer with dinner at night or something like that. But maybe 1 or 2. Same with a glass of wine. 1 or 2, half a bottle, save the next half bottle for the next night, you know? Because like that's what I do when I'm going through my phases of drinking too. Sometimes they can be heavier or lighter.
Well, I think culture towards alcohol, as most people know, British people have a very bad reputation for alcohol.
Because like, it's funny, like, because we share that, like, things in common with that. Like, British and American tourists are always like so looked down upon, like 8 times out of 10. And like you hear them before you see them. They're the ones that are always causing a ruckus. And like, I don't know what it is that makes us party the same, because the alcohol influence per our country is very different. We have to wait till we're 21 versus like you guys can. What's your legal drinking age?
18.
Has it always been? Like, wasn't it 16 at some point? Because I know in Europe, in most of Europe, it's 16. Holland just raised it to 18, like
Well, it depends
a
what
year
you
or
mean.
two ago.
You can have a glass of wine with dinner in a pub with your parents, I think at 16. And you can have a drink at home, I think, from 5 years old.
What?
I think so.
In El Paso, Texas, you can bring your kid to the bar with you as long as they're 13 or older.
I think that's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
This idea of like, oh, stringent 18. Now that makes sense in some bars. You don't really want kids. That's why it shouldn't be every bar. But surely how it used to work was your dad would take you down the pub. You'd kind of meet his friends. You'd maybe have 1 or 2 beers. And if you acted like a fool after 2 beers, like your dad's not going to bring you back to the pub.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn to ingratiate yourself within that culture, I guess. And if you're withheld from that and then you just go fucking crazy when you get to 18, then you act like...
That I feel is like the cross that Americans have to bear, is like it's so restricted until you're 21, and then when people are finally able to drink, they go buck wild with it and do 21 shots of fucking booze to the dome on their 21st birthday and like get alcohol poisoning from overdoing it. So like that I don't think works in a culture. Like I love that, and like it, because my mind put the correlation together when I came to Europe. It blew my mind, like the first music festival I went to out like in Belgium, and like I saw these like 3 like 15, 16-year-old kids, like all like there's like 3 young guys hanging on each other, all drunk, and like like talking to each other and like all loving on each other. And I was like, oh my god, they're wasted, and they're like 16. It blew my mind. But then I feel like introducing it to kids at a younger age, then you get a better understanding for it, a tolerance for it. You go through your things with it like earlier, faster, and then and I also feel like if it's more accepted, people don't take it for granted as much. But if you're trying to keep it away from people, that's when people misuse it more so.
Well, ultimately, it is bad for you. You typically don't make better decisions on it. Obviously, even if you don't kill yourself through the liver damage or something, you can do something dumb while you're drunk. So maybe in a future you can imagine people would look back and go, why did people drink poison that made their brain funny? And people would go, we don't know. I guess they weren't evolved enough to sort of find happiness without it. And you could look at it that way. But I mean, I think as civilization has gone on, it's been almost an integral part of European culture. And the idea that it lowers your inhibitions and social inhibitions kind of makes the places that drink quite funny. And there's a lot of people who drink who are funny because they don't mind laughing at themselves because their social inhibitions have been lowered. And you could argue that alcohol has an effect on culture in the long run, and you can't just withdraw it. But maybe the future is to sort of, we don't need it. We'll enjoy fine wine without the alcohol. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because I lean more towards wine in just the sense that like it's just a fermented fruit essentially. Like there's less processing put into wine than there is to make a beer or a booze. Depends on the booze though. So like I don't know, just naturally fermented things that can be naturally fermented and drank and like enjoyed in that sense. But then there's all, because I don't know, I'm a bit of a open-minded person when it comes to drugs as well, and like I tend to like the things that are more natural versus the things that are have more
synthetic.
Yeah, put
Or
together
more
in them.
ingredients. I mean, I guess nothing's as pure as it was, but nothing ever goes bad. I mean, if you think about a beer in a can, everyone is the same. Like that ability to get conformity across such volume is kind of impressive, really. You get your favorite wine, it's always the same, or at least it's not with wine, because I guess the years sort of they're different. People say this was a good year, this was a bad year, but people don't say that about the beer, right? You expect your kind of Stella Artois to taste the same this year as it will
Yeah, no, and that brings, like, that's a really good lead in into a theory that I have. So, like, I'm super in love with wine from like 2011 to 2013 are like the best years for me. And like anything before that is, I don't know. Then it's probably out of my price range, but then it's getting really expensive if it's before that time anyway. But I really enjoy beer or wine from those years, and my theory behind that is because do you remember the giant volcanic eruption that happened in Iceland, like a while back?
Right. Yeah. I think that was maybe like 2010.
Yeah.
10. Yeah.
Because it was in April because it canceled Coachella. Like half the artists that were going to Coachella, which is, have you heard of Coachella? It's like a massive festival, and that was the fucking first year and only year I went there too, because the lineup was just so killer. And then like pretty much everybody I wanted to see was coming from Europe, and then I didn't get to see any of them. But then like my theory behind that is from that giant, like, because like that was over like a big chunk of the northern hemisphere that affected.
Right. Volcanic ash.
Yeah. So then that settling on the crops of Europe, like, because it's carbon, and carbon is what like essentially everything's made out of. So
I guess it's not just the carbon; it's more the minerals.
Yeah, and the minerals and everything that like settled onto the crops, and then I feel like that helped the wine in those years like a lot, make it just something more rich.
And is this something you've heard or read, or is this just something that you thought of? Like,
no,
that would be
like I don't know if it's just that I'm more partial to older wines or not, but like I specifically like 2012 to 2013 are like my favorite times, like my favorite like years of wine to get, and they're kind of hard.
How much does wine change in its time when it's just sitting there? Because what I mean is, it's impossible to test.
I guess it depends on the wine, because some wine like is meant to be drank by a certain date after it's bottled, and then some of it can just sit and age, and
you can have 100-year bottle, it'll be
change.
beautiful.
Yeah, so it just depends.
It's very hard to compare, is my point. So when you say I really like them from these years, that could be a case that you've got nothing to compare it with, because what you would need some 10-year-old wine but from a different decade, and you can't have that. So you're comparing it against younger wines in general, and maybe the aging process has something to do with it as well as the time it was grown in.
Well, I don't know, because I've been drinking wine a lot, and then I've gotten the same brand of wine, but then at a later year, like whether like it be like 2013 is really like the cutoff point. I don't know why, like that's like the cutoff point for it, but like I've gotten the same year, but then it is like a year or two younger of the same brand, from 14 or 15, and
you know, there's people listening who are serious into wine, just going, Jesus Christ. People take it so seriously, right?
Like that. Oh yeah, sure. And I'm no expert by any means. I just know that I like those. Like I've always had luck with those years. Whenever I buy those years, I'm happy about it.
Well, I read something about wine tasting, and it was a long time ago, and I can't remember even where at, but it basically said there was some sort of test or study that showed that a lot of experts and people who, use, reviews and things like that, in sort of objective examples, they couldn't perform that well. They weren't particularly good at any of the tests, and they didn't seem to be experts. And what it seems they do is they're very good artists. They can write well with words. If someone can say the elegant crisp of the flick of the citrus on the end of your tongue just washes down the honeydew and leaving you with a sense of satisfaction. It's
Do you want to
like
hear a real story? Like, this is a real story, and I'm not even joking. Okay, so my old roommate was this Swiss guy, and he was in hospitality something, and we were having a drink with my old downstairs neighbor, and like this kid was so good at it. Like, he drank the wine and knew where it was from, and we both thought he was bullshitting, and we had to get the bottle. He's like, I know what wine this is. This is from this company, and it's from like this something from this side of the hill. He said, and we're like, what? from this side of the hill. Like he got it that specific. We're like, that's insane.
Are you getting mixed up with the scene in Inglourious Bastards where he's describing where he's from with the accent? Because it sounds a little bit like that.
No. This has actually happened. And then we got the bottle and it said 2 of the things that he was talking about on there. It didn't say anything about what side of the hill, but he was 2 out of the 3 things that he said were on the bottle. So that's something.
And he didn't see the bottle. He couldn't have seen the bottle.
No. Because like I believe like that like a lot of wine tasting is just like in people's minds and stuff like that. But then like that I was impressed with. Like I watched that happen and it was a real thing. Like he was spot on with what the wine was, where it was from, and then like he even mentioned the hill, but of course that's not going to be on there.
People have natural talents. And some people are going to have.
But then he's also from
smelling.
Swiss and he's from near where that wine came from. So like it could have been luck that it was just like such a familiar, distinctive thing for his palate that he knew it and he just got lucky. But like, you got lucky.
There's a lot of bad things about Switzerland, but their flag's a big plus.
What are some of the bad things about Switzerland?
I don't know, I just said that for the joke.
You're dumb.
I mean, there's something inherently bad about just being, not being neutral at certain times, but making a point that you're going to be neutral all the time. There's something a bit wrong about that I don't like. And Ireland sort of did.
Well, but then like that like takes them out of most conflicts. Then like that's why can't the rest of the world be like that, or more of the world? And then
I would say
there'd be less of us in other people's fucking business.
I'd say it comes back to the fact that all it takes for evil to prevail is good men to do nothing. And the more neutral people there are, that's more good people doing nothing, and thus evil prevails. That's like how I see it. And fair enough, they're a small country. I get it. Like they can't, and it's politically expedient to be neutral. But maybe there is a morality behind neutrality that people don't consider. People maybe think, oh, that's just moral to be neutral. You're staying out of it, or amoral because it. But maybe.
I think
maybe it's your duty not to be neutral.
But then I feel like it's also kind of the role that they play within like their own country and within the European Union, and just it is the role that they are within because they're a banking country and they're a rich country, and like that's where a lot of people put their money because that's where you can back your money by gold and make sure that your things are going to be safe because they have a notoriously
expensive wine.
Dude, when I went to Switzerland, I went into the store and I was going to buy a tall can of beer and it was like €8. I was like, what? Like, I was like, this can of beer is €8. It was 5 like Swiss francs or something, like 5 or 6. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, what? Like this, I don't even want to drink now. So, I went to a club and had to spend €45 on one fucking drink. I was so mad. Oh.
So imagine being there, living there and earning in Switzerland, so you're earning enough to sustain your life in Switzerland and then traveling to somewhere else in Europe. Your money's gonna go
live
so
like
far.
A king.
You live like a king. Like if you're used to paying $8 for a drink, and then you come here and it's $1.
Ooh, so I was doing a road trip through Switzerland with my dad too, and we were driving from Geneva to Zurich. And I was looking like, I always look for like random fun things or abandoned things. Like I'm an urban explorer. So I like to find abandoned places to go explore or anything that's a little like out of the usual. And I ended up finding outside of Zurich an abandoned amusement park that was it's called Bruno Weber Park, and since then, it's exchanged hands through sales a few times, and nobody's like a bunch of people have wanted to restore it, but nobody ever did. I guess now it has been bought because when we got there, we snuck in, and I was like, Dad, you have to keep your head down. You have to be stealthy, because there could be cameras, there could be somebody walking the grounds, security, you gotta be on your shit. So I was being all stealthy, and then I was we were walking up the pathway, and then there was workers there. So I was like, Dad, Dodge, go to the bushes, go to the bushes. So I ran into the bushes and I watched my dad just walk up to the people working. He's like, hey there. Like, so, like, neighborly, like, just like, oh, am I allowed to be in here? Is that a problem? I already told him, like, Dad, let's not even find out. Like, let's just avoid where the people are.
That's a good strategy, I think.
Yeah, like, so he sat and talked to people, and I got to explore, like, the property. I went off and, like, did my own little thing, because he knew I'd do some shit like that. But this park is not just a theme park. It was, like, some guy's art installation that turned into a park and was like this crazy creation, and like all of the figures there were like crazy looking. There was like lots of like there was like mosaic art on it, but then like the faces were all like crazy and weird. Like if you would be there at night, it would be very scary. Like the faces like were all warped on the things. They weren't normal. Like it was not a normal theme park by any means. It was like somebody's kind of twisted nightmare fantasy kind of thing. And like, oh man, it was so cool. I hope that somebody like buys it and takes care of it and doesn't like decide to destroy it. Cause it's like off on like a hill on a land that like you can see that there's properties around it. It could very easily get bought out and just wiped away. And
would you like to buy some abandoned, like wasteland?
I would buy that and I would move there and I'd be happy about it. I'd never go anywhere again. Like if I was gonna shoot, I'd bring people to me. I would change my life to have something like that.
You'd become a junkyard lady, like a sort of.
No, I'd fix it up. It would be amazing.
A theme park. That's a fixer-upper. So when I asked the question, I thought you're saying, yeah, I could buy an abandoned, old theme park, live in it as an abandoned. But what you're saying is, no, I'll get the funds to start a theme park.
No, I would get an old abandoned one because that's even better.
But what would you do with it when you say fix her up? Like, just make your house nice at least.
Just make it nice and
the whole
maintain
thing.
it. Like, maintain it. And it's wonderful glory. Like, Bruno Weber Park would be something I would invest into and, like, maintain and take care of because it's like a giant art project over anything. Because it's so random. It's so obscure. And, like, creativity and individualism like that doesn't come along often, and like that is somebody's masterpiece and life work, and like I would just love to preserve something like that. And not many things I feel that way about, but occasionally. But I lean towards like the alternative and the anything that's outside of the box. I like coloring outside of the lines.
Well,
so.
you dream of yourself as a clown, and where
I do.
Where would a clown live in a theme park, an abandoned one, laughing, giggling.
If only it wasn't in Switzerland, because then I'm sure it's like way, way like out of my like dream.
I think theme park's a bit unrealistic, but you get yourself an abandoned, I don't know, nuclear silo.
And like the parts that I don't maintain, I could like let it be overrun by nature, but then like maintain the nature and like have like vines that will grow up like over certain things, and let nature and like modern design merge together in its beautiful glory.
Beautiful glory.
Yeah.
Long-term goals, okay.
Gosh, I want to go back there at some point so bad. So
why did you tell me that again?
I can't remember.
What? How did we link to that? Because now I'm just imagining you as a clown.
Because we were talking about
Because it's in Switzerland. It's in Switzerland, right? That place is in Switzerland. Well, it's not so far. We could go there. See what they do with the place.
My tattoo friends are in Switzerland too.
And the guy who knows the wine. We should get some tips.
Right.
We could be
No,
cultured.
he's in Amsterdam. But he is from Switzerland.
I could learn to be cultured. I'm sure it impresses some people, to know your wine.
Right? Yeah. Like, because like when I hear most people talk about it, I'm like, no. Like, I feel like you're just making it up. And like, I have always thought that was like primarily made up until I saw somebody like know what they were talking about. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. Like, because that was amazing. Like, very impressive. Like that, I feel like that's so like once in a lifetime though. Like I feel like I'll never meet somebody else that could like do some shit like that ever again.
Well, you did a blind taste test with me on your birthday, and you did it with cheap champagne.
Oh, I think I was yelling at you.
You were yelling at me. You were so angry that I didn't appreciate expensive champagne as much as you do. And I was like, I appreciate it. And
That's
like,
only because I was drunk, because usually it doesn't matter to
on
me.
champagne, yeah, but she was not happy.
She
was not happy.
There's 2 times a year that I drink champagne. It's on my birthday and New Year's. And
I guessed it right.
I am a hilarious champagne drunk.
I knew which one was the expensive one. I guessed right. So.
Did you? I can't even recall.
Well,
I know that this happened, but
well, I actually
the details are a
which
little
one is the expensive one, and I guessed it right. And you know how I knew?
But wasn't I telling you to?
No, what happened was after I tried all 3, you instantly grabbed the glass with the expensive one and held it to your chest, like subconsciously holding it like a baby. And then I was like, well, was that one the expensive one? You're like, yeah. Because you couldn't wait till the end of the experiment. You couldn't wait till the end of the experiment to seize back what you love.
Oh, I can't help it. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I totally do too. Express them. But I maintain them as well.
Call you Bubbles from now on. It's cute, right?
It works.
Why'd you call her Bubbles? You'd be looking like all cute. Isn't that the monkey's name? Michael Jackson's? I'd be like Michael Jackson. You'd be the monkey.
Wait, is this serious?
I think he had a monkey called Bubbles.
I think you're right. This sounds moderately familiar. These are fun, huh?
Oh, we're both bouncing on chairs. They're very flexible chairs, and we were just looking at each other and realised that we were sinking. We were beginning to sink. And our bouncing chairs.
I like them. Yeah, these are unusually flexible, because sometimes they're stiff as fuck, and then they're more uncomfortable, but when they bounce a little
you're a little slower than me though. To slow down to.
Well, yeah, I got a slower rhythm than you do.
Really?
Kinda.
Depends,
yeah.
I think.
I don't know. I feel like I'm reserved, but excited all at the same time. I feel like on the inside, I don't know. I feel like both simultaneously. Is that okay?
However you feel is okay. Expecting anyone other than the criminally insane to understand it is unreasonable.
Do you believe in giants? Do you believe in giants now that you've known me for a while and I've talked to you about it a lot? Or where's your standing?
If I was standing, I'd be standing on the shoulders of giants.
Oh.
Meaning you. Right, meaning if you'd asked me that a while ago, I'd have said no. Now I would probably say, what do you mean by giants? Because...
Bigger than what we have per average on the planet today without gigantism.
I believe there will have been races or subspecies of humanoids that were all larger than we are now at some point in history. Now, whether you decide that's giant or not, but I think there will have been ones that were considerably larger. Yes.
Because in general, when I ask this question to people, usually I get I would say 90% of, or maybe even more of the people that I ask if they believe in giants, they all say no. And giants are considered mythology and everything. And I had asked my friend Dino the other day if he believed in giants, and he was one of the first people that I could remember him saying yeah, totally. And I was like, really? Why do you? It was so weird. And he was like, yeah, they're in stories and in mythologies, but they're talked about real. And he was like, yeah, giants used to were real. They used to walk the planet. I believe in that. And that made my heart really happy that there is still people that do believe in it, because I feel all you have to do is change a story for 2 generations and then history is rewritten. It happens so fast.
Well, you should change your phrasing in the question, because when you say, do you believe in giants? To me, it sounds like, do you believe in Santa Claus? Do you believe in the Tooth Fairy? Do you believe?
You're right.
What you could say is, do you believe that giants once existed? Because now you're not asking if they exist now. You're making it very clear that maybe they don't exist now, but they might have, and it just doesn't sound the same
More
as
specific. Yeah.
hey, do you believe in? Which usually is the part of, which usually is how you would phrase a question about something mythical.
Good. Thank you for that note. I will do it that way from now on.
Reprogramming.
But I know that you've heard my spiels on this before, but for anybody that hasn't heard it, so for any people that are in disbelief of giants or are question their existence, we all know about the pygmy people. And actually, where are pygmy people from? I can't remember. Like, multiple places on the world. Africa, Indonesia, the Philippines, Andaman, the Andaman Island. So the pygmy people have been documented in multiple places on our planet, and we know it. Even if you've never researched them, you know the name pygmy people.
Right, you know they're tiny.
Yeah, it's a race of small people, and there's been multiple races of them all over the planet. So that's going from Africa to Asia, which is a pretty long thing. And then also the last race of giants that we have documented and in books and textbooks, and you can still see the remnants of their buildings or however have you, where they used to live, are the Guanches from the Canary Islands. And when do the Guanches die out? When do the Guanches die? 1496 is when they went away. So that's not that long ago, in the retrospect of things. So that was the last, and it took them 100 years to die out. So because the Spanish went there, but then it's so they were the Guanches of the Canary Islands. And which island were they on? The main island, and Tenerife. And Tenerife is full of mountains and gorges, and it has all different landscapes there. So you can maintain living there in secret in many different places. And I've seen documentaries of where the caves that the Guanches were in, and where the last bundles of them died off and everything like that. And they also have the bones and the skeletons of the Guanches.
Right.
And the Guanches averaged, I do believe, between 8 and 10 feet. So, and that was the average.
So why do people disbelieve if there's skeletons?
I feel like it's just because so apparently from my research is since Christianity and Catholicism took over and started going north into the UK or Britannia at the time or whatever, that it was when what do you call it, Catholicism or came in and kind of changed everything and started demonizing the idea of giants. I just move everything around when I do things. I'm sorry. No, so I think it was religion that came in and started demonizing the idea of them, and then also the fact that they've died off, which turns them more into mythology than anything. I just don't understand why it's not taught more factually. And people ask, well, where's the proof and where are the bones? It really depends on where you are, because in America there was lots of proof, there was lots of documentation, and it's all been taken away, and it's been proven that it's been taken away by the Smithsonian, and then it disappears. But then in South America, they have their own governments, so they've been able to maintain a lot of their relics and stuff. So, and they have giant elongated skulls and different skeleton, big bodied skeletons, and that are just a different.
They're giants.
Yeah. So. And then I also believe that there could have been a race of even bigger giants than that. What people, the real fantasy idea that people have in their mind of 15 to 20 feet tall. I do believe that could have been a thing at one point as well, but that would have been much longer ago, because I'm able to perceive timelines of
It's possible.
12,000 years to 24,000 years, and like a lot can happen in that time. Like evolution happens in that time. Like a lot of things. Like
What would be the evolution cycle of the, say the 10-meter giant? So I can imagine a long time ago, and then he would have to sort of evolve down into what our primate Homo sapien, Homo erectus, evolved down into that. I mean, I can see that logically, but the idea of there being humanoid 10-meter creatures within the same time period as we know in our development, i.e. the Neanderthal, the Homo sapien.
no, but that's why I say like you have to be able to look back into the history of our planet and perceive a bigger timeline, because even we know that dinosaurs existed. We've seen their bones in museums.
Well, not everyone believes that. They think that's a hoax.
Well,
I guess the same people who think that dinosaurs are a hoax probably think that giants are real, but that's been covered up. So they're covering up the giants, but faking
I know
the
people
dinosaurs.
like, it's so funny how like, but that's just people being disconnected, because you can take bits of information from different things, from religion, from science, and you can merge it together, and people are acting like they can't intertwine these things. And like some of the best scientists are religious scientists that are able to conceive notions of both sides of the spectrum. So, and then there's non-religious scientists, not to say that there's non-religious scientists that aren't more superior to the religious ones, but like but then some of them could be cut off in their perception of things because they only understand things in a provable scientific way versus
it's specialization as well. Like I know you made me think about the timeline. Exactly, everyone knows about dinosaurs, and most people could tell you it was 65 million years ago that they got wiped out. Oh, okay, yeah. Then things started to evolve. Mammals came out as the age of mammals began, and they came out because all the large predators were dead, and there's a re-evolution process is what I'm saying, but that's a
re-evolution.
Long time. Well, like just
so I would go as far as
reset.
to say de-evolution. I feel that we have been in a de-evolving state for a while, and I believe a great part of that is due to our atmosphere changing as well, and just the planet itself and the cycles that it goes through and the changes that it goes through affects the life on the planet as well. And the atmosphere used to be so different 1 million years ago versus now, so that is going to have a huge impact on the creatures that live there. So I believe that we have been in a devolving state for a long time. Like the since the dinosaurs and since the climate changing, things have been getting smaller because the climate had to be so different and enriched with all the bullshit that like it had back then, to where things could sustain being bigger versus there's less of that in the air. So to adapt and evolve, you have to devolve at the same time. And it's not to say one, like devolution is bad or anything. It's just could be what's happening. Or you could argue that it's evolution, and then you're getting smaller to be able to maintain your breath better, to be able to survive, to be able to move faster versus slower. But then like your faster is covering less distance than maybe the slow because you're bigger, and like I wonder what that would be. Or you're just maintaining that balance of about the same, or however it may be. But since dinosaurs, animals have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller
that's
in adaptation to things.
Absolutely
so
true.
why wouldn't that happen to us? Which brings in my theory of bigger giants before versus now. But then there's also different races on the planet, which people forget. Like big people, small people, in between. There's different races, different evolutions. People pocket in different places. Some stunt, some keep going. So lots of variables involved.
Well, there's two main reasons why animals are smaller. So you had a lot bigger insects when the atmosphere was different, and they could breathe bigger. So now there's a physical limit to how big an insect can get because it can't breathe properly if it gets too big. And the second is humans killing everything. So whenever humans started to migrate and travel and be well enough that we could work in tribes and hunt effectively, we basically started killing out every apex predator. So the saber-toothed tiger is, a thing that existed around men. Killed, hunted it. If we found one, we'd...
Well, that turned into modern big cats, though, so man didn't wipe it out completely. But we sure are doing it now to what we got left on the planet.
Well, I think they were different. I think you had a lot more different subspecies. There's always shared ancestry.
And then there was also cataclysms in between, so...
Yeah. So cataclysms, human nature, too little or too much oxygen. What you're saying is we're very lucky that we can breathe it at all with all this change, It's lucky that it hasn't changed so dramatically that...
Do you think that we can affect our own evolution?
Of course.
More than just inadvertently, but
of course.
On purpose?
Well, you could make a distinction between the words evolution and natural selection. And some people would. I don't think we need to.
Okay.
But the idea...
No, but I mean, I guess do you think if we were to pump more moisture into the air, eventually we would grow gills? No, I'm just kidding. That's an extreme example, but...
The point is, when people say stuff like that, I think it would happen in a normal environment. So if you did change it that much and then came back millions of years later, if that species had survived, then that's what would happen. But I think what's happening right now is that we're the main driving force in most mammals and humans for sure is sexual selection. It's not really our environment that's choosing who lives and who survives. It's not really that. Of course, it does happen. If you're too dumb and you get hit by a rock, then you're out the gene pool and that was your environment. But most of the time it isn't that. It's sexual selection, and most of that's who women choose or can be able to mate with, which men. That's kind of how it's been. So sexual selection is kind of what we're doing there. And then with the modern world, we can even steer that even further, so we can incentivize certain people to have more children than others, which is certainly true in most of the West, that there's a correlation with your intelligence, or at least your financial success or career success, and the amount of children you have. Mm-hmm. So if you're a doctor and a lawyer, you might have one child.
That boils down to a simple notion to me, and it's not to your priorities are different, your focus is different. It boils down to simple things as well that has an effect on, but then also that is a very...
So these two factors, the sexual selection and the maybe societal manipulation of who breeds more, those things are in essence natural selection, and they are shaping the next generation.
You've seen Idiocracy, right?
I think, yeah. Right. Well, that is exactly how it is, I guess. That's what happens in it, right?
Whoever hasn't seen Idiocracy, you should absolutely see it, because it makes a very valid, hilarious...
Well, that's kind of what happened, but obviously there's bigger considerations when you're talking about the long-term future of humans, and I don't think that's up there in the top 5. It's something to think about, but I don't think when you're thinking long-term about how humans are going to survive or evolve, I don't think that's a major concern for us.
Are you sure?
I think there's other things at play, like the science we have to affect the human body now. We could clone a person, and I'm sure people have been cloned. It's not legal, so no one's coming out and saying we did it, but we cloned a sheep, I think, in 1998.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's like, hey, and you can clone mice, and you can clone everything. And you think, well, humans are a bit more complex, right? But not that much more. Like if they could do that 23 years ago.
So is stem cell research still a thing? I'm assuming nobody talks about it, but is it legal in the UK?
I'm not too sure, and I think there's some good applications for stem cells, because stem cells are just those cells that are able to adapt, I think, better. So I don't think there's necessarily a moral concern there. But the truth is, it's all a house of cards. The system is same, but who knows who's really doing this stuff? Alex Jones will have you know that the Chinese are doing animal-human hybrids. And you think, wow, that sounds a bit wild. But then again, do you accept that some governments are doing things that are internationally illegal, but they feel could benefit their country?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
and I even feel like that's I don't want to say necessary, but I feel like that, why not? I don't know. I don't hate China. don't hate their nonsense. Like they got like there's like pros and cons, but at least somebody's doing it. I don't know, like
I mean, I don't really know what that means.
it's like I don't know, like why not? Like if you have science behind it, like what can you create?
Well, that's what I mean. I think that sort of considerations are gonna overshadow.
Because like look at stem cell research. So I looked it up and because I remember there was a big like hoopla in America about it and wanting to ban stem cell research. But then like I never agreed with that. Like but like a lot of people are really against it. And then like that will correlate into the vaccine, but we'll talk about that later. But I was always kind of for stem cell research because for the simple fact that like even in the pagan times, like people would eat the placenta after birth, like the afterbirth, and it does have a lot of amazing things for your body and
like
nutrients and things like that. Yeah, but like it really does hold a lot within it, and that's where you get stem cells from. So like I always thought that it was a super interesting research, and why not?
I've donated stem cells.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
They drill into your spine.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh. Really?
Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, I gave it to some kid who was sick. Probably leukemia, but I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, you don't know that. I thought I was just reminding you, but you look like you.
Whoa, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, man, they put you to sleep. They're very nice to you in the hospital, of course, because they know that you're donating. So I have to say, I was treated very nicely.
Well, yeah, no, that's a hero's thing to do, you know?
It hurt, but it wasn't like so traumatic because I wasn't, scared about going under or anything. So to me, it was just deal with a bit of pain for a few days.
Terrified of that.
So
I think I'm just terrified of not being in control, though. I think that's a different thing.
I get that, but I think that idea of not being in control is when you maybe suspect that someone's going to do a worse job than you could do. And when I'm getting into a hospital and I'm doing that, or I slash my arm open or whatever, at that point it's like he's going to do a better job than me. And even though there's risk, there's no point me worrying about that because I can't do anything about it. I can't like tell him, oh buddy, when you're stitching this up, will you just remember to get it extra tight? Like, oh, nice tip. I'm glad you said something. It's like, there's nothing you can do, so you can just give over.
I say that. I say things like that to the doctor.
Are you sure this is enough? Like, you could always up this. Give me twice as much. I think this would be fine. You think or you know?
Oh my goodness.
Giants. Well, I guess they would have a lot of stem cells, so maybe we could clone them, use their stem cells to save our.
Because isn't that the thing that they want to bring back, like woolly mammoths or something? Because we have like their essentially their something like their descendants still around, so we could, in theory, possibly impregnate an elephant with a woolly mammoth.
Well, they were talking about that in the 90s.
Where on earth would it live? All the elephants are in warm places now. What if we start like...
Have to shave it.
Oh no, like now I'm like... Okay, like anybody that's some kind of fucking activist is gonna not like this thought, but like, could you imagine bringing a bunch of elephants to like a cold place and like breeding them in cold places? Like first you put them in jackets, but then over time...
This is brilliant. You put the jackets on the big ones, but then over time, they learn because they grew up in it.
Like, do you think in time that they would start getting like fur, like growing fur, like slowly? Like it would be like a slow process, of course. Like
You'd
it's
have to
evolution.
move up slowly through Europe. It would be the great project of the 20s. You'd be like, 2025, the elephants are here this year. They'll be in Norway, They'll be like, the elephants got here. They're up into the Arctic Circle next year. Their final stop before they get the full fleece.
Yeah, because you'd have to like migrate them slowly too. Putting snowshoes on.
You know, someone made a joke about animal endangerment, and they said, you know what, if we just start eating them, people will breed them. Like, there's an elephant problem. If you start eating and making it's like, I am telling you, there will not be a shortage of elephants.
Oh my god.
I mean, they're a bad example because they're huge. You know, they're the biggest. They're going to take a while to mature. You know, you want a smaller. What's endangered that's small?
There's a restaurant in Arizona that like serves exotic animals.
I mean, it's a bit...
And usually like they've died from like natural causes or something. Like I don't know exactly what, but it's not like super inhumane or anything. But
you know what I'd be totally for?
I'd
be totally for replacing factory farming with synthetic grown or produced meat, but that not being the norm. Like people still want real meat, but they should get it from more like a farm, like not like huge.
So you're talking about like vegetarian meat, or are you talking about like?
Well, it would be vegetarian.
Giant farming, like.
But it's no, it wouldn't be like
because that's what's happening. Like
in the future, surely you could grow meat. You could just grow a steak, like the genetic, like it's getting fed like an animal, but it's got no nervous system or a brain.
Isn't that what like Kentucky Fried Chicken in America is kind of doing? Is exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea.
They were like on their way to doing something like that. I don't know like about the long-term effects of something like that though, like, and if it's gonna actually like hold its vitamins and minerals the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's a tricky science. You may be right.
So I mean, essentially, like you can make veggie burgers that have like the vitamins and minerals and things that you put in there. Like the consistency and density would have to be a thing, but essentially you could do that, and then that would be nice though if people ate less meat. Like that would be better. Factory farming is terrible. Like that's like the one of the worst things in the whole world. In the whole wide world, that's one of the worst possible things. That has stopped humans from being human beings. I swear to God. Like shit like that, like it's too much. Like that's factory farming is insane to me.
I mean, I've always agreed with that, but do I have to write it in the project book? It sounded really important then. End factory farming should be in the project book.
Like for our future?
One. Yeah, it's a big one though.
Oh wow. Okay, that like those are like you put on a shelf like you can think of it, but like that's big goals.
I'm
like,
just saying I could write Save the Cows tonight on the book. I could always scribble it out.
No, like that would like that fudge. There was like that's what got kind of protests rocking and rolling in America again. Was it started with like factory farming and people trying to peacefully like be like, hey, like we see what's going on here, fix the conditions, and like local lawyers and patrons getting together and peacefully doing things. Show
some basic.
Cause like that's like, I feel like like people like they do need a little bit of nature and animals in their life to be, cause like it's the circle of life. Like we're all part of this planet. And I feel like we need to be able to have a respect and a connection somewhat with those things, or we lose our connection a little bit with ourselves. And that's just how I personally feel is like because some people just look at like animals like they're dumb and like they don't matter, or it's just food, or your pet dog, like why are you going to be so nice to it? It's just the dog, you know? Like a lot of people are quite dissociated from their respect from like what's around them, in the same sense that they'll go and cut down a tree and not like replace it, or like not care how many trees they're cutting down or how they're affecting the environment, and that dissociates us from not only what's around us but ourselves. And I feel like that's a big thing, a part of it. And we were even talking about it the other day, like Scandinavian people per capita have some of the smartest people, like for their, like in their countries. And part of my theory behind that, like my first thought when I learned that was, I feel like it's because they're so immersed in nature there. Like even their big cities are surrounded by nature in a way that like not all big cities are. And I feel like just having some kind of connection to that, like in Scandinavia, people still use yodeling to gather their sheep which is sound resonance through the land, which is nature, animals, and you all combined coming together. So just like completely losing your connection to that, or not even realizing that it's an important factor, can I feel like people should remember that and know that. And there's even a trick that they say, like when you're going to a new place that has a different time change or something, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go outside and find like grass or dirt or like natural something, and you're supposed to stand in it for 10 minutes barefoot, and it helps you like adjust to the place that you're in. I've done that before, and I feel like it helps, but I'm very mind over matter with things, so I can tell myself to do things and it'll work for me, and not everybody has that ability. So.
Well, I think it's great to end the show on a little bit of advice, and it is.
Are you cutting me off?
It is winter to a lot of listeners.
Yeah.
Be careful, don't stand out for too long. No, my doctor actually said I have to cut you off after an hour, so... See you later.
Whatever. Fine. Till the next time.
If you made it through an entire episode of Natter Splat, well done you. You can find more of us all over the internet and at nattersplat.com. See you later.